I want to be exceptional, and to be that, I need to learn to be absolutely ordinary. It sounds like a paradox, but I believe it makes all the sense in the world. I think one of the biggest ways to master a skill, and there are a lot of theories about it, there is a 85% rule where you have to succeed 85% of the time to have yourself have space for failure, but also not enough to not understand how to learn. The 80-20 rule, there is a 10,000 hours rule where you have to do a skill and practice at it for 10,000 hours to be considered an expert at it, which it all makes sense. And I feel like there's a lot of ways in which you can improve your ways of learning. One of the main principles that I've highlighted for myself personally is that quantity leads to quality. There's an infamous story that has been mentioned in 2 books. The more popularized version of it is the pottery class, where students were divided into 2 groups, where one group was meant to be graded based on the amount of pottery things that they made, their clay creations, while the other one would be judged based on one object that they would make, but it had to be perfect. And by the end, the most creative and most exceptional things that were made were in the group that had to be graded based on quantity. There's not a lot of research that you can make on the topic, but I do think it does make a lot of sense to start your process by fully embracing yourself in whatever the subject is. Let that be by reading books about it or reading small articles online. Let that be by watching Netflix documentaries or YouTube videos about it. Fully being in the topic that you want to learn about helps a lot, and that then helps you find your way into understanding what content would and would not be quality content for the subject. Because I feel like an issue that many face when they want to learn something is they don't know where to start. But I think starting is the main thing. Once you have the habit of continuously investing your time into the topic, that's when you're like, okay, cool. I can now learn how to do this better. And that's where the trap of planning comes into the game, where a lot of people will try and plan their learning journey before they even start, and then it just scares them off because they don't really know what they're talking about and what they're planning. I think a good way would be to hire someone as well to help you out, but nothing for me works as good as just doing it by myself so far. This was kind of an interlude into the main thought process of I want to be exceptional, and that's why I need to do not so exceptional things to go my way to the top. When you want to create something, especially nowadays, I feel like the basics are quite often undermined for their value and their importance. I think contemporary art has served as a good example of that happening when we see people just rushing into, trying to make something, which I can appreciate and I can, respect. But oftentimes they will try to express themselves without the proper foundation. Not to say that it's necessary in all cases, but I do think a good foundation goes a long way. And without it, you obviously can and will succeed in your own ways. But you always could take a faster route to achieve the things that you want to achieve. And to each their own, of course. But it does seem more reasonable from time to time to take your time with practice and baby steps. Because while it might seem meaningless and insignificant, that practice does serve you with lessons that are not written in books and are not told by people. It's certain points that click in your mind, and it's so personal for everyone. And that's why I do think the journey is the skill. It's not even the muscle memory that you gain, for example, in painting. It's not the strokes and the confidence with which you'll make them, but rather the understanding and the value that you put with your mind and soul into the skill because of the sacrifice of time and effort. And I believe that's the journey worth taking, and that's the journey worth being present for. Is it sustainable? Not always. But sustainability, I think living a sustainable life when it comes to your persona and when it comes to development is a safe way to live and is not so sustainable in the long term, but rather taking the high road is what gets you to places, and places is where I want to go. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video.